Today, we have to talk about something regarding Nintendo, specifically Nintendo of America, that has made a decision. And I mean, look, all decisions at Nintendo of America start at the top with Doug Bowser, but it also starts with the agencies that Nintendo of America works with, because a major shift is occurring that's really going to probably impact this holiday season in particular. And this impact is unfortunately going to come back on us customers, and in some cases, seemingly already has come back onto customers here in North America. And it's very unfortunate, and I'm not really sure anything's going to change. In fact, arguably, things could just get worse. If you are a consumer that has dealt with stuff like this with other companies before, maybe this won't surprise you. But I am very not happy with this change. I know I'm often told that I don't criticize Nintendo enough, and maybe it's just because people don't see me make individual videos on given topics, but this one to me feels like Nintendo is burning both ends of the stick, both employees and customers, and as such, I think we need to really draw some light onto this the way that IGN has done today. Now, before we dive in, just because I'm upset about this doesn't mean that I'm not happy gaming on Nintendo Switch 2. And because I am enjoying the games, we are giving away 2 different ones. So first off, we're giving away 3 copies of Mario Galaxy 1+2. You can enter down in the link down in the description. We're also giving away 5 copies of Kirby Air Riders. That's in a separate link down in the description and or pinned comment. I wish everyone luck. But I just want to note before we dive in here that we are actually talking about customer service. And I want to note personally that I have dealt with customer service at least a dozen times over the years at Nintendo of America, and I've been very pleased with customer service. I've given them really high ratings every time their phone service asked me to, because regardless if they could solve my problem or not, they were very clear, concise, and supportive of whatever I was calling in for. And most of the time they were able to actually, help me out, whether I wanted to do a chargeback, whether I wanted to deal with some sort of physical problem like Joy-Con drift. I've always was able to get help pretty easily, and they were always very friendly to me. And now some customers are starting to experience something that's unfortunate, and now we're hearing about it from internally at one of Nintendo's agencies. So let's go ahead and get over to this article for the full context. And yes, I'm going to read the entire article because there is a ton of context we need for the story, including the fact that Doug Bowser has responded to this. So, Nintendo customer support concerned following outsourcing decision ahead of Switch 2's first holiday season. Impacted workers say they feel betrayed after years of service. Shout out to Rebecca Valentine for this a literal journalistic approach here. They have multiple sources on this. So, Nintendo of America has made the decision to outsource its customer support services, resulting in hundreds of contractors losing their jobs. Amid concerns, Nintendo's customer support will suffer as the Nintendo Switch 2 enters its first holiday season. IGN spoke to multiple sources impacted by the decision, who spoke to us on the condition of anonymity due to a fear of reprisal. All of them painted a picture of a formerly rigorous structure for training and maintaining customer support services in the United States that was suffering significantly due to language barriers, poor communication, and Nintendo's overall decision-making on how to handle the transition from a US-based support to outsourced support from South America. Sources say that historically, Nintendo of America has contracted with primarily 2 US-based agencies to fill roles in back-office customer support. That includes, according to one source I spoke to and verified by others, back-office teams, fraud, financials, chargebacks, customer services, chat logs, customer phone and email support, refunds, account bans, remote data transfers, repair support, and everything customer support. There are a few people remaining on site overseeing it, but essentially it's all going away. Though the people in these roles were contract employees, those we spoke to say many workers have been there for years. In order to skirt laws that would have required them to hire full-time workers, Nintendo of America would contract them for 11 months at a time. At the end of the contract, they would be quote-unquote let go for 2 months, during which they could draw unemployment, before having their contract consistently renewed, often at a higher pay rate each time. Contractors receive some health benefits through the agency, with the only Nintendo-provided benefits being occasional free or discounted games. Everyone that I have worked with has worked here for years, said one contractor. As a result, IGN understands many of these contractors were highly skilled and experienced, specifically in working with Nintendo of America's systems and procedures. However, in March, workers were told their contracts were being cut to be phased out entirely this month being September. Those I spoke to were unsure of the total number of individuals impacted, but estimated in the ballpark of 200 workers total. Contractors were informed through their respective agencies. Sources tell me contractors never received any direct communication from Nintendo of America on this subject. Not a thank you, not a I'm sorry, nothing, said one, because they are contract employees. They do not receive severance pay, even if their contracts are ending early. Contractors whose contracts run through September are still working their usual jobs, but with a new duty added, they now have to help train their replacements. Those we spoke to shared Nintendo of America appears to have cut contracts in the US only to outsource the jobs to workers in South America, primarily Brazil, but also other countries such as Argentina and Nicaragua. While Nintendo of America has previously employed support staff in these countries, in the past they were limited to first-line contacts, who would then pass information to departments in the US for cases to be handled in full. But now these workers are more fully taking on customer support cases. While they are receiving assistance from the US workers, those I spoke to say this process has been challenging and frustrating for everyone involved, and there are concerns that customer support quality will suffer long term. For one, U.S. contractors tell me that Nintendo of America has previously had rigorous standards that held customer support workers to. However, they say those standards seem to be different, less rigorous, for the new hires, and the U.S. contractors report often being called in to resolve issues on their behalf. One U.S. contractor told me that feedback provided to supervisors of the new group of contractors did not seem to be making it to the agents. The training of our replacements by existing agents is something that has never been done with new hires before, they said. New hires were previously brought in large groups and whittled down to the best 3 to 7 agents. While help was always available to new agents, there was always an expectation to see a contact through to the end unless something urgent or sensitive was found, in order to ensure that every agent knew how to do everything. Now we are expected to finish contacts that are deemed too difficult for new agents. Another issue is the language barrier. While the new contract employees speak English, those I spoke to say their skills are often understandably weaker than those of a native speaker. This has caused a number of communication issues internally, but also has resulted in a noticeable increase in customers becoming irate, belligerent, and even racially abusive towards agents. And one person specifically recalled seeing customers using racial slurs towards the new agents on multiple occasions. And I just want to say, before I go on here, that regardless of the outsourcing of customer support, and we've all seen this at various companies, and yes, I've definitely been frustrated on the phone where I feel like I'm making very clear communications and the agent just isn't understanding it, and then you ask to speak to a manager, and then the managing agent is the same way and doesn't understand. I know how frustrating that can be. It's very frustrating, and sometimes my problem never even gets solved. That being said, that is not an excuse for us to be abusive towards these agents who are trying to do the best they can, being paid very little to do so. And it is definitely not okay to be racially abusive. Remember, these agents are not at fault. And I want to be clear, I don't want anyone losing their jobs, even from other countries. This is not okay. We need to be better as customers, a bit more understanding, even though it's also understanding why you might be frustrated. And unfortunately, Nintendo of America and the agencies they work with pretty much brunt all of the blame for those frustrations, but please take some personal responsibility. It's not okay to be uttering racial slurs in the midst of your frustrations. After all, it is not the agent's fault. All right, moving on. Everyone we spoke to expressed concern that this change would result in, at least in the immediate term, a noticeable drop in support quality for Nintendo of America customers, especially once the trained US agents were no longer around to support. As they pointed out, this is coming at a time when Nintendo might be keen to have strong customer support, with the Nintendo Switch 2 having just launched and preparing to head into its first holiday season. But instead, Nintendo seems to be prioritizing cost saving, as one former employee put it. We feel pretty cheated by the whole process. Nintendo just released a highly popular console and they're making plenty of money. Yet the minimum wage in the areas they are hiring from equates to about $1 an hour in USD. Now, the author notes here the general minimum wage in Brazil is R$1,518 per month, which equates to 245 USD per month, or approximately $1.53 an hour. Minimum wage in the state of Washington is $16.66 per hour. That's not necessarily representative of what these people are being paid. I want to be very clear in terms of what they're actually paying in Brazil and what they're paying in the U.S. These are just general figures that they're obviously getting paid more than $1, but how much more? And obviously, what's the cost to live in Brazil and all that? That's a whole different conversation because I'm not knowledgeable enough to have that. That being said, they are basically sacrificing the quality of well-trained agents to save a bunch of money. And it's left us all feeling very vulnerable, crappy. Obviously, we knew taking contract jobs that this could happen, and there was no guarantee to return after a contract breaks. But I personally feel as though Nintendo could have easily hired on a bunch of the contractors as full-time employees and had better results while still saving money from having to use the agencies, which obviously take a cut of the money. So I guess it's made us feel worthless. It's also such a volatile economy to be dumping us all out into. When asked about the claims in this article, Nintendo provided the following statement. While we have nothing to announce about our internal business activities, the claims shared with IGN include inaccurate information. At Nintendo of America, we are extremely thankful to have partnered with several companies and their talented contractors over the years to deliver high-quality customer service experiences. We continue to evolve and expand our customer service model with external partners that have deep experience in all the markets we serve across the Americas. This approach allows us to support the full scope of our customer service mission in both North America and our growing Latin American markets, and better scale to seasonal needs for consistent support. As always, our top priority is to provide excellent customer support, and we are pleased that customer satisfaction with the service provided by all of our partners remains positive, which there was literally a quote in the article about a non-positive customer experience. And what about the fact that some of the agents can't seem to handle some of the complaints from North America, and it's all just being sent back to agents in North America that are not going to be working there after this month? Might be something you don't want to ignore, Nintendo, because this is going to become a huge problem this holiday season. I'm telling you right now. Now, I asked Nintendo to specify which claims in the article were inaccurate, but the company did not respond. I also reached out to the contract agencies mentioned by my sources for this piece. Neither responded to my digital inquiries. One didn't answer the phone nor return my voicemail, and the other answered the phone but was unable to connect me with anyone who can answer my questions. The individuals I spoke to also expressed concern and fear about the job market they were about to enter, especially given the growing use of generative AI in customer support industry-wide. They pointed out that due to a rise in generative AI replacing human workers in their industry, it could be extremely challenging for those impacted by this to find work. The same source added that Nintendo's customer support environment had been, by and large, a positive working environment for employees who are members of the LGBTQ community and attracted a diverse workforce over time. But consequently, they say, those diverse individuals are now especially struggling with the impact of these reductions due to the current political climate in the US. You're putting us all back out into a market that makes it clear we are not welcome, they said. A lot of us are feeling betrayed, empty, almost led on in a way. Who knows what the next couple of years will look like? It's hard to see a post from Doug Bowser thanking his direct team, which he did that when the system launched on LinkedIn, for how much this has impacted him. They added, you're thanking the wrong team. Now, look, I'm not going to get into the political aspects of this because in the end, it is not on Nintendo to obviously help them find new jobs and stuff. It would be cool if they did, but I'm not going to chastise Nintendo for not helping these people get back into the workforce somewhere else. It would be good if they did, but ultimately they were contract positions and you had to have known the risks. And this is part of the risk, is the contracts could obviously be cut short or not be renewed. So take some personal responsibility a little bit for that part. But setting that aside, overall, this is a really crappy thing. Like a super, super crappy thing. There's basically no way, even if you want to try to spin this positive and be like, well, Nintendo of America is saying aspects of your report are incorrect, but they're not clarifying what aspects. And it could just be like, it's not just Brazil, Argentina, and whatever other country I'm forgetting right now. Maybe they're hiring in other countries. Obviously, I'm not saying that support aspects shouldn't exist in those countries. There are a growing Latin American audience for Nintendo, so having more hires from that side of the world is obviously really important for those customers. The problem is, while you're doing that, you're reducing the support here in North America, which includes the United States and Canada, which right now are the Americas, including all of North and South America, primary customer base. The US making up the largest portion of that. So you feel like you would want to continue to deliver excellent customer support to your US base. And you've been using primarily US agents for US customers and Canadian customers, of course, for decades. This dates back 40 years. And this is just really sad in general that this is happening at this time when launching a new system. Again, this kind of goes back to what a lot of us have felt when Reggie Fils-Aimé stepped down. Doug Bowser stepped up, but Doug Bowser came from EA. And I have been giving Doug Bowser the benefit of the doubt for a while. He's getting acclimated to the position. He's probably more of a yes man to Nintendo of Japan. But there are very specific decisions that Doug Bowser has the absolute say on. Who they work with for customer support is the exact sort of decision making that Doug Bowser and the team below him get to actually make decisions on. Who they work with customer service-wise is not decided by Nintendo of Japan. It's decided by Nintendo of America with Doug Bowser at the top. So he does bear responsibility for this change, even though it is possible the change started without Doug Bowser's knowledge. But how many people think the agencies that Doug Bowser hired, that somehow Doug Bowser and his team were not informed that they were going to start outsourcing a lot of that work? Let's be realistic here. Even if it was the agency's decision, Doug Bowser would know about it, and Doug Bowser can pull the contract from those agencies if they so please and go with other agencies that prioritize staff here in the United States. But that's not what happened. So that means that Doug Bowser is complicit in these changes, and they're obviously just trying to save a buck at a time when Nintendo doesn't really need to save a buck. And honestly, it might not even be saving Nintendo money. If the decision is being primarily made by the contract group, it could just be people at the contract group pocketing more money and having to pay out less, thus increasing their profit margins. We all know how greed works in the business world, and paying the least possible money out to actual customer service agents. That could also be what's going on here, where it's not Nintendo saving money, it's the agencies saving money for themselves. It's very, this is in the speculation territory, and we're not sure how this all functions. Of course, we're not privy to the exact contract details between Nintendo and these agencies, nor are we privy to the conversations that have happened between Doug Bowser, his staff, and the staff at these agencies. So there's a lot of, assuming some pretty bad things here. But what we do know is that it does sound like roughly 200 employees are being let go by the end of this month, and there's no plan to bring them back. They are keeping some people on, of course, because they have to have some staff here in the United States. But I can imagine those staff are probably managing some of the teams over in Brazil and Argentina and all that, and are going to be getting a lot of... They're going to get overwhelmed. Let's just put it this way. Even if they're hired on to be full-time employees, which would be great, they are going to end up being overwhelmed for a couple particular reasons. One of those reasons, well, I know when I call in for customer support and I get transferred to a manager, because oftentimes when I'm dealing with customer support that's been outsourced, they don't understand what I'm saying. I can send clear emails. There's broken English. So I request to talk to a manager, and then I request to talk to their supervisor. And finally, I usually end up talking to somebody who speaks native English and might be even located in North America. The problem is, I'm not the only one doing that. There's going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of customers this holiday season doing that. And if you only have a handful of employees left in the United States to handle that, they're going to be extremely overwhelmed. So I feel really bad for the employees that are left. And then I also, honestly feel bad for the new agents. As much as I'm happy that they have jobs, and I absolutely am not saying we should take away jobs. Arguably, you could have kept the staff here and expanded the jobs there and just had better customer support across the board, also offering a much larger time for those new hires in Brazil and Argentina to learn from the experienced staff. Well, the experienced staff isn't feeling the threat of actually losing their job. Unfortunately, that is not the direction we're going here. So there's no way to really positively spin this. These are actual reports from actual employees or soon to be former employees of these agencies, contract workers specifically for Nintendo. And I feel just bad about this. Like, I've worked in the customer service industry before. I've done customer support calls. I even worked in the IT industry doing this under contract work. And yes, there's always inherent risk when you're a contract worker. When we hear about all these layoffs at all these companies, these video game companies in the West, they're usually just contract workers, which I know sounds mean. And there are some guarantees when they get laid off about payouts and severances. But it's just fascinating to me that we are in this situation in life where Nintendo of America's Doug Bowser is now deprioritizing customer happiness at a time when we're obviously spending more than ever in an economy that's not doing that great, and just trying to save a quick buck is what seems to be going on here, and that sucks. So Doug Bowser, this is a terrible look. I would think you would want more positive headlines going on. People are already mad at you over the marketing of Switch 2 and the hiding of price points. Other directs didn't necessarily hide the price points in their given countries, but we hid the price points here and announced them after the fact. And the way you handled some of the interviews around the pricing and the tariffs, you said some just, I don't really know how else to say it. You said some dumb shit, and that sucks that you did that, but the product was good. To me, the games were good, and so I've been mostly a really happy Nintendo Switch 2 customer, and I want to be clear, I don't really have the need for customer support that often. It's highly likely only maybe 1 or 2 times over the course of Switch 2's life would I actually be calling customer support. That said, when I do that, I'm now expecting to be frustrated, and that sucks because your customer support, in my estimation, was industry best. Industry best. And now I understand why. While they were contract employees and you were fudging around to not make them full time, you did increase their pay every time, which encouraged them to sign a new contract. Health insurance was provided by the agency. You provided free games and discounts, but they were just experienced. They had a lot of experience in customer support, and they genuinely seemed to care. From my experience of customer support, they definitely seemed to care about my problem and wanted to help me find a resolution that would make me happy and keep me buying their games. This doesn't excuse some of the behaviors some customers have made, including ones mentioned in the article, but bottom line is that is happening because customers are frustrated with the significantly downgraded customer support. So again, I don't blame any of the new hires. Obviously, it's being told they're being held to different standards. They don't speak English nearly as well. And there's just going to be lots of communication problems, not just between the agent and North America people coming from the US. There's also just going to be communication breakdowns between the literal customer and that agent. And that's really unfortunate. Obviously not for everyone. People that speak Spanish and stuff like that actually might get slightly better support. So there is a bit of a benefit there. But to most of your primarily English-speaking audience here in the US, that is going to cause problems. So yeah, this is just really unfortunate. Hopefully, they're not going to reverse the decision. I want to be clear. Every company, like major company out there, is using generative AI and outsourcing their customer support. So you can argue that this should be expected, but Nintendo seemed to buck that trend for a long time. And I feel like if Reggie Fils-Aimé was still around, this probably would have never happened. He doesn't seem like someone that would have been okay with making the customer experience worse, because he seemed to recognize that the customer should come first. And if the customer comes first, they can be more accepting of things like higher prices and all of that, because we're getting a higher quality of service. When you're going to lower our quality of service to, say, EA, who outsources their customer support, that's just really, really unfortunate. So, yeah, hopefully more content creators decide to talk about this. This is something that isn't probably going to get changed, but maybe Nintendo will at least consider hiring more full-time possible employees to handle these cases as they get escalated, because it sounds like it's just going to be a handful of people. And I think they're, while maybe you don't need 200 anymore because you're going to have hundreds of employees working in, South America, Brazil, Argentina, and other places. I do think that if you could at least increase the support team, the full-time staff and support team, say from whatever it is now, adding like maybe 50 new full-time support staff on, I think could actually do a great job in balancing both offering full-time positions and also maybe saving a bit more money on the backside by having people from other countries handle the frontline support. I think there can be a balance here. And that's what I'm kind of hoping comes out of this, because they're not going to go back on this. They're not going to hire the 200 people back, but I'm hoping some people can get hired, enough of a team in North America to be full-time outside of these agencies. So there's enough people to handle the escalation reports and hopefully keep training the frontline people to be even better and better. Because this is going to be a rough transition. And I expect a lot of complaints coming all over Reddit and elsewhere this holiday season about customers having horrendous experiences with the customer support, because we already see this with other companies. All right, folks, thank you so much for tuning in. I am Nathaniel Robojans from Nintendo Prime. Let me know what you think about this down in the comments below. Have you worked in customer support? Have you seen how the industry has changed? Have you just been someone who's used customer support? What are some of your concerns, or are you not concerned at all? Let me know. I'll catch you in the next video.